Happy Thursday, everybody. Chuck Freeby alongside Bob Nagel. Welcome to our social media preview brought to us by our friends at Jimtown Mobil as we take a look at the high school football weekend. Big weekend in Michigan. They have had a scare up there with this equine encephalitis outbreak, and so they're moving a lot of the kickoffs in Michigan up a couple of hours to the late afternoon so they won't be out at night when the skeeters tend to be out. I don't know if that'll be the case for the War on the Shore, however, as they get ready for St. Joe and Lakeshore tomorrow night. 63rd renewal of this rivalry. It'll be right on the shores of Lake Michigan at Dickinson Stadium. Lakeshore has won 8 straight in this rivalry, Bob, but they've got a new coach up at St. Joe by the name of Andrew Prattley, and his team is playing well. They're 3-0 coming in.
Well, and they have to play well against Lakeshore just because of the spirit that'll be going on. We've had a chance to do that game a few times, and it's just a special night up there, and the War on the Shore is a good description of how both teams really sell out. But a new coach is going to get a little indoctrination into this series tonight. I just think that Lakeshore's a real solid team, so it should be a good battle.
You know, Andrew Prattley's son, Troy, is the quarterback. They've kind of rejuvenated the offense. Jeremiah Sterling having a good year running the football. Defensively, Connor Levanway having a nice season for the Bears. Now, Ryan Kimes kind of redone his offense a little bit, too. He's got a quarterback by the name of Jimmy Gillette, who's been very solid this year. But Lakeshore, traditionally a team that built on the running game and playing good defense. Zeke Roll having a fine year defensively up there. So that'll be a head knocker up at Dickinson Stadium, and a big crowd as always expected. Also in Michigan, huge showdown in the Wolverine Conference on Friday night as Edwardsburg takes on Vicksburg. Battle of 3-0 teams. Kevin Bartz and the Eddies continue to steamroll. They're ranked number 2 in the state. They've only given up 8 points all season. We saw them in the opener against Dowagiac. Caden Calhoun, Dylan Hurst, and Matt Godesky. You've got a lot of backs to choose from in that backfield, and they all run the ball well.
Well, and one of the things for Edwardsburg we saw a couple of weeks ago is the execution that they have on every play. Everybody knows where they need to be and how they're going to get leverage, and they're very patient. They wait for the hole to open up. And execution could be a way to describe what could happen to Vicksburg if they don't show up and play their best game of the year, because Edwardsburg is just that good and a program that's really rolling.
Now, Vicksburg did hang 32 on South Haven last week, but you know what? They haven't beaten the Eddies since 2014. We'll make the picks on Friday night in our 46 picks segment.
You know who's going to be really excited about the outcome of that game is Pawpaw.
Yeah. They're
the other undefeated team. There's 3 of them atop the conference, and one of them is going to lose, and Pawpaw thinking that maybe them and Edwardsburg will be tied for the lead.
Well, and that they don't play until the last game of the regular season, so we'll see the Redskins and the Eddies at that point. How about here in Indiana, down in Fulton County? They'll play the Battle for the Bell tomorrow night. Rochester and Tippecanoe Valley, another great rivalry we've had the opportunity to broadcast over the years. Both these teams 3-1 coming in, and both of them looking very similar on offense with mobile quarterbacks. We saw Tanner Trapiti during the basketball season. He plays football, and he's the QB for the Vikings. And then you take a look at Nick Allen for Rochester, similar styles.
Yeah, and Trapiti is so quick. You know, we saw him in basketball, and I think what he does, he gives them maybe another dimension, a guy you really got to concentrate on. Again, it's a very spirited matchup between these two, and who knows, might come down to just home field advantage.
Well, and the home team has won the last 3 years, so that could be a big factor in that one. How about in the Northern Lakes Conference? The huge game in that conference this week happens down at Fisher Field in Warsaw. We saw Tom Wagaman and the Northridge Raiders last week lose to Plymouth. Now they got to rebound with another long road trip. They do run the ball well. That young man, Cade Lacey, along with that fella, Dominic Crowder, pretty good 1-2 punch for the Raiders.
Yeah, I think Crowder had a lot of success against Plymouth because they're really keeping an eye on Cade Lacey and really every play. Now, Tom Wagaman's got a good team, a tough team, but they do have a little inexperience here and there, and I think that could be a big factor. And I love what Bart Curtis is doing down at Warsaw, changed the culture, really emphasizing defense, and they're going to need to Friday night against Northridge.
Well, here's a clue, too. When you're playing the Warsaw Tigers, you better be ready to stop the run because they're going to run it. That young man, Juan Jaramillo, had 247 yards and 3 touchdowns last week. The Tigers ran for 460 against Elkhart Memorial. I'm no math major, but that sounds to me like over a quarter of a mile.
And it sounds kind of like what was going on at Mishawaka when Bart Curtis was coaching there. It took him a while to get everything lined up, but I tell you what, they do the same thing at Warsaw as they did at Mishawaka as far as practice goes and running off of that veer that they set up. You draw lines on the practice field and everybody knows their angle of attack and how to get leverage in that running game.
We've got 3 games to talk about in the Northern Indiana Conference. Let's start with a city rivalry between Riley and Washington. Both of these teams 3-1 coming in. Now, a lot of people expected Riley to be pretty good this year because they've had back-to-back winning seasons, and Jarvis Edison's squad, once again, a very versatile offensive attack with Senator Brown at the controls and a pretty good receiver in Chris White.
Yeah, it sounded like against Marion they had a couple things that went against them, and it kind of got their dauber down a little bit. And I'm not saying that they quit. I don't think that was the case. But Marion is a very good team, and when they got down, it just appeared that Riley said, well, you know what, tonight's not our night. But Jarvis Edison's done a nice job, and Todd Sandwich is doing a great job at Washington. And again, you got to come into a program and change the idea that we're expecting to win, and they expect to win against Riley.
Yeah, I talked to Todd yesterday, and he said that he's really pleased with how his veteran ball club, they've got 22 seniors, how they've really bought into his system. And he thought that there might be a little head-to-head competition going on there early in the year with a new coach, but it hasn't been that way. They've really bought in. They're 3-1, and they believe they can play with Riley. Now, Washington's a team that really likes to run the football. I'm not sure they're as diverse on offense as some other teams around, but Kenyon Grant's a really nice quarterback. My question is, how will Washington be able to fare on the line of scrimmage? Because Riley's got some big physical kids up front.
And I think they would like to have it decided by the line play. I think Riley's got the weapons to score quickly. Senator Brown has the ability to throw the ball up. White is a good receiver. So it could be one of those games where even the stats say that Washington wins, but Riley, maybe a couple of quick strikes could make a difference.
If you've ever watched a NASCAR race at Bristol Motor Speedway, you know there's not a whole lot of passing there. That'll be also the case at Steel Stadium tomorrow night when New Prairie visits Mishawaka. 2 teams that love to run. This game could be done in an hour and a half because 2 teams that love to run the football, and you can understand why, because they're both really good at it. When you got New Prairie, you've got 2 of the top 20 rushers in the state in Chase Ketterer and Chris Mays, and a pretty salty defense. Russ Radke's squad, 6th in the state in scoring offense at almost 49 points a game.
Oh, by the way, those 2 running backs you mentioned, they run behind a pretty good-sized offensive line, and that's really been, I think, the secret for New Prairie this year. And Russ Radke goes and looks for the big hosses up front. They create openings, and then you got a good runner like Ketterer, who's very quick and very sharp and understands the offense. Mishawaka lost a couple of guys from last year, but again, it's a great system, and Keith Kinder's got his guys buying in, and he's finding some new heroes.
Yeah, Sam Shively and Chris Harness are sadly gone, but they do have a good outside-inside combination. Number 9, Donovan Snyder. You see him there on a fake by Shively, but number 9, Donovan Snyder, is the guy that goes to the outside. Then Drew Mason is the new fullback who takes care of things on the inside. And I look for Mishawaka to be very aggressive in this game as well because, well, Keith Kinder told me yesterday before practice, they kind of anticipate a shootout in this game. These 2 teams combined average a total of 88 points a game. I would never set an over-under on a high school game, but I would say that you can expect the scoreboard operator to get a workout tomorrow night.
Yeah, you know, you're thinking Keith Kinder is a relatively new head coach, but he's been with that system for quite a while. And what I really like about what's going on at Mishawaka this year is the guys who left last year seem to have left a pretty good legacy for the younger players. You know, this isn't a big mystery. We just need people to step up and become the players who play in those positions, and the system works, and Keith Kinder's a big part of it.
First time in a couple of years, we will head on over to Jimtown. They have renamed the facility Bill Sharp Stadium in honor of the former Jimtown legendary coach. They christened it last week. Marion hopes to end the party this week when the Knights come calling for our 46th game of the week. The showdown in the NIC South, and all Mike Davidson's team has done this year is outscore opponents 189-21.
Pretty solid performance by the Knights on both sides of the football, and Again, here's a system where Michael Davidson has been with Marion when Reggie Glan was the head coach, but he ran the defense. Defense is really solid. They've got a lot of really good players on defense, but offensively, can't say enough about Maddox Begonia and what he's done, taking over that slot. He's a good athlete. He's a really good leader on this team, and they've got plenty of running backs. They've got some wide receivers. This is a team, too, that can score in a hurry, as we saw them against St. Joe a couple weeks ago.
You're taking a look at Malcolm Anderson, their fine running back, going right up the middle here to pay dirt. That defense that Bob was talking about, they've actually scored more touchdowns than they've given up. So for Jimtown, the question is, well, how do you compete with that? And Mike Campbell says it's got to be a low-scoring game. Their defense has to show up and keep Marion stifled. Defense did a great job last week against John Glenn for Mike Campbell's squad. They only gave up 2 first downs, gave up less than 100 yards solo offense. Now, granted, that's John Glenn. That's not Marion. That young man, Clay Campbell, has to be effective throwing the football, and they've got to be able to establish the running game with Oscar Zelaya and Ethan Duvall.
Yeah, Clay Campbell's a part of a class that we remember them talking about 5-6 years ago. Boy, wait till these guys are seniors at Jimtown. They've got good leadership. They've got some pretty good numbers. And again, getting it all together and playing well against Marion is going to be a chore, but they're playing at home, and that's always a tough place to win.
So we look forward to being on the banks of the Bogo on Friday night for our 46th game of the week in the NIC South. It's Marion and Jimtown. You can watch it live here on Facebook at 7 p.m. or do what you've done for 30 years and watch it on TV-46 Friday night at 11 and Saturday morning at 9. That's our 46 Sports Preview, brought to us by our friends at Jimtown Mobil. For my broadcast partner, Bob Nagel, it's Chuck Fraby. Thanks for joining us on social media.